Ladies and gentlemen, in a world that is loud, restless, and constantly demanding our reactions, there is a rare kind of strength, the strength to remain unmoved. The strength to walk away without chasing, to stand tall without begging, and to endure in silence without the need to explain. Self-mastery is power because it is the rarest and most difficult form of victory. To govern oneself is to command the most unruly kingdom that exists, the restless mind, the turbulent emotions, the endless desires that pull us in 1,000 directions. Most people spend their lives trying to influence the world around them, seeking control over circumstances, over others, over the unpredictable turns of life. Yet they remain slaves to their own impulses, unable to hold their tongue, unable to resist temptation, unable to keep steady when storms arrive. The one who governs himself has no need to govern others, for he has already achieved the highest throne possible, the throne within. Think of anger, the fire that burns hotter than any flame. Many let it consume them, acting out in ways they later regret, destroying relationships, opportunities, and peace of mind. But the one who has mastered himself feels the anger rise and does not let it dictate his actions. He watches it like a passing cloud, acknowledges it, but does not hand over the steering wheel of his life. That man is more powerful than the one who commands armies, because armies may fall, but his inner fortress stands unshaken. Desire, too, is a chain that binds. The craving for wealth, status, attention, or fleeting pleasures keeps many in a constant chase, never fulfilled, never at rest. Yet when a person governs himself, desire loses its grip. He enjoys what he has, uses what is available, and remains content whether the cup is full or half empty. No external possession can enslave him because his satisfaction is born from within. Such a person cannot be bribed, cannot be lured, cannot be corrupted, for he is already whole. Self-mastery also means discipline over the tongue. Words, once released, can never return, and many lives have been ruined by reckless speech. But when you rule yourself, you learn when to speak and when to remain silent. Your words carry weight because they are not wasted. People listen, not because you shout, but because they sense your restraint, your control, your awareness that words are tools, not weapons to be thrown blindly. The one who governs himself radiates calm even in chaos. While others panic in uncertainty, he acts with clarity because he is not a slave to fear. Fear may knock at the door, but it does not sit at the head of the table. He moves with reason, not with desperation. His strength lies not in force but in composure, not in outward domination but in inward command. To master oneself is to walk freely in a world that constantly seeks to pull strings. It is to rise above insult, above temptation, above chaos, because no external event can unseat the ruler who governs within. The one who achieves this has no need to govern others, for he has already achieved a power that no crown, no title, and no army can bestow. Detachment strengthens dignity because it breaks the invisible chains that tie your worth to things beyond your control. When you chase after what is running from you, people, possessions, recognition, you declare, even without words, that your value depends on their presence in your life. This pursuit places you in a position of need, and need is a form of surrender. Dignity is lost the moment you allow desperation to dictate your actions, but dignity grows when you can stand still and let go of what does not belong to you. What you refuse to chase loses its hold over you. Think of a person who craves validation. Every glance, every word of approval, every nod becomes fuel for their spirit. But because they are addicted to it, they remain weak. The moment validation is withheld, they crumble. In contrast, the one who walks away from the chase for recognition holds his head high even in silence. His worth is not written on someone else's face but carved within himself. That is dignity. Desire, when it turns to attachment, becomes a master. It whispers that happiness lies just ahead, in the next possession, the next relationship, the next triumph. The more you run, the further it seems, like chasing the horizon. But when you detach, the chase ends. You begin to see that happiness was not ahead of you but already within your grasp. The power that once belonged to the thing you pursued dissolves, because you have declared through your actions that you do not need it to stand tall. Detachment is not indifference, nor is it coldness. It is the quiet strength of knowing that you can appreciate without possessing, care without clinging, and engage without losing yourself. When you detach, you still love, you still strive, but you no longer fall apart when outcomes shift. You refuse to let what you cannot control become the master of your peace. That refusal is what preserves dignity, because dignity is rooted in independence of spirit. There is also a certain calm that comes with not chasing. Others sense it. People are drawn to those who are not desperate, because desperation is heavy, it suffocates, it pushes people away. But the one who does not chase creates space for respect. They stand like a mountain, silent, steady, unshaken, while the world rushes about. In this presence, others begin to lean in, because dignity has gravity. It pulls without chasing, it commands without begging, it influences without force. The world is full of illusions that try to convince you that you are incomplete without them. They flash their lights, they tempt with promises, they run just fast enough to keep you chasing. But once you stop running, once you let go, their power fades. You realize that nothing is worth your dignity, and nothing has power over the one who refuses to surrender it. Silence is not weakness because silence requires mastery, and mastery requires strength. Anyone can shout, anyone can argue, anyone can let anger and ego spill from their mouth, but it takes discipline to hold your tongue when provoked, to stand still when pushed, to let noise swirl around you without adding to it. Silence is an act of power, for it denies others the reaction they crave. It is the refusal to be pulled into battles unworthy of your energy, the choice to remain anchored when the waves try to toss you about. Weakness is impulsive, but silence is deliberate, and in that deliberation lies unshakable strength. When conflict arises, silence unsettles more than fury. A person who shouts reveals how deeply they are controlled by the situation, but the one who remains quiet radiates mystery and composure. That quiet presence confuses those who expect a fight, frustrates those who want chaos, and forces others to reflect on their own noise. The storm thrives on opposition, on fuel, on resistance, but when silence enters, the storm begins to tire. It has nothing to feed on. That is why silence is not retreat, it is victory through restraint. Silence is also the ground where clarity grows. In noise, the mind becomes clouded, tangled in endless reactions, regrets, and arguments. But in silence, the fog clears. You hear your own thoughts, you see the situation for what it truly is, and you act not from impulse but from wisdom. It is far easier to lose control when emotions are loud, but silence cools the fire, slows the breath, steadies the heart. The one who embraces silence is not paralyzed but prepared, not weak but watchful, not passive but patient. There is a dignity in silence, because it shows that you do not need to defend every opinion, correct every insult, or chase every misunderstanding. Your value does not rise or fall based on what others say or believe. To explain yourself endlessly is to hand over your peace to those who may never accept it, but to stay silent is to protect your inner fortress. Silence is a wall that shields you from the arrows of judgment, and in that shield lies a strength many cannot comprehend. Silence is not emptiness, it is presence amplified. When you choose not to speak, your every gesture, your every look, your every word, when it finally comes, gains weight. People listen more closely, respect more deeply, and consider more carefully, because they know your silence is not born of ignorance but of power. The quiet one is never overlooked, for silence speaks in a language louder than noise. To remain silent in a world that constantly demands noise is an act of rebellion, a statement that you cannot be shaken by provocation or dragged into chaos. Silence is not weakness, it is the calm that unsettles the storm, the discipline that protects your spirit, and the strength that no one can take from you. Dignity over desperation is the mark of someone who knows their worth. To beg is to lower yourself before something or someone as if your existence depended on their approval or generosity. It is to forget that what is meant for you will come without humiliation, that what truly belongs to you does not require you to bend your spirit. When you beg, you give away the crown of your dignity for the crumbs of temporary satisfaction. But when you stand firm, you send a message to the world that you trust your path, that you will not trade your pride for fleeting comfort, and that your value is not negotiable. Desperation is heavy, it clings to the soul and strips it of freedom. It creates illusions of scarcity, whispering that if you do not plead, if you do not cling, if you do not lower yourself, you will be left with nothing. But nothing is further from the truth. To beg is to forget the abundance of your own strength, the fullness of your own presence. What is meant to be yours cannot be stolen by another hand, and what leaves you was never truly yours to begin with. Dignity comes from understanding this truth and refusing to let fear drive you into submission. Those who beg may gain something in the moment, but they lose far more in the eyes of others and in the mirror of their own soul. The one who begs tells the world, "I do not trust myself, I do not trust the path, I do not trust that life will provide what I deserve." But the one who holds their dignity says with silence and steadiness, "I lack nothing, I wait, I endure, and I accept only what comes without chains." This posture is not arrogance but faith in oneself and in the natural order that gives to each what is due. Consider relationships, where begging often shows itself most clearly. To beg for love, for attention, for affection is to declare that you are unworthy without another's gaze. Yet love given out of pity is not love, attention gained through pleading is not respect, and affection forced is an empty gesture. True connection flows freely and cannot be taken by rivals or circumstances. If it leaves, it was not yours. If it stays, it is not because you begged but because it was bound to you. Dignity keeps you from kneeling before what was never meant for you in the first place. Desperation is noise, but dignity is silence. Desperation says, "I will do anything to keep this." Dignity says, "I will remain myself whether it stays or goes." In that difference lies freedom. The one who never begs carries an invisible strength, a quiet authority, a calm assurance that unsettles those who expect him to crawl. What is truly yours cannot be taken away, and what is not yours should never cost you your dignity.